This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking. I thought today we'd talk about Congresswoman Lori Tron from the 3rd Congressional District and what a hypocrite she really is. She calls upon the president to resign when she is under federal investigation about how she financed her campaign. She financed it in an illegal fashion according to the articles being written in the paper. Where did she come up with the money to finance the campaign? In other states, she would have been a major news story. It's been downplayed in Massachusetts because of her liberal views. But she stole an election. She really didn't have the resources to run for public office at the time, and she could have raised them. She went and did it illegally by getting money supposedly that wasn't hers from her husband's business, which would be an illegal contribution. She then calls upon the president to resign because he's made statements. The one that should be resigning is Lori Tron, and she's a hypocrite, a left-wing hypocrite. Somebody that is, talks one way and walks a different way. She is somebody that should be called on the carpet. How did you finance the campaign? Where did you come up with the money? It isn't your money if it's only in your husband's name, and that's the purpose of that law. If the money's in your husband's name, it belongs to him and not to you. And there was a reason he never put it in your name, because it was business money to finance his corporations. Lori Tron, shame on you. You talk one way and walk a different one. You are a hypocrite of the worst order. She calls and she joins the impeachment. Well, she's the one that should be impeached. She violated campaign finance law, and nothing's being done about it because she belongs to the elite left-wing group that runs Massachusetts. Lori Tron violated the law and got away with it. Will she stop at anything? I don't know. Is it still being considered before the Federal Election Commission? I think it is. I would imagine the Election Commission is still conducting an investigation. Has it been considered by the federal grand jury yet in Boston? I don't know. But in other states where it's happened, grand juries have been impaneled. You cannot use assets that do not belong to you to finance a campaign. The law is explicit. You can accept a $2,700 donation from your spouse, period. She accepted millions. It violated the law. A very ambitious woman. A woman that will stop at nothing to gain political power. A woman that really shouldn't be sitting in that seat today. But a woman who can come out and argue what the president did wrong. How hypocritical. Have we really sunk to a new low in this country where you're not held accountable for your actions? Ms. Tron has refused to answer any questions from the media about how the campaign was financed. Why? Because she has something to hide. She doesn't want to tell where the source of the money came from that put her over the edge. She was not running ahead in that election up to the end, and in the primary or in the final. And then she had all this infusion of resources to buy those needed TV ads to increase her name ID. Ms. Tron, you should live by the standard that you preach. If you violated the law, you should resign. If that is, hypocritical, the typical hypocritical Democratic politician's viewpoint. The law applies to the masses and Republicans, but doesn't apply to themselves. Ms. Tron violated the law, and she's innocent until proven guilty, but she won't discuss where these funds came from. Who gave her the money? Was it from her husband, or was it from a business associate of her husband's? Why hasn't the assets been accounted for? How did she finance the campaign? Her finance statement showed she didn't have adequate assets liquid assets to cover the influx of money into the campaign from herself. These are alarming trends. Where there's one standard for a Republican and a different standard because she fits in the right political philosophy for a Democrat of Massachusetts. Lori Tron should be investigated, and if she bought a seat illegally, she should resign. Politics is about fairness, in the preceding campaign laws were adopted that there's an equal playing field and people are fair. If she didn't attain that money in a legal manner, it is time for her to step down. Let's tell it like it is. Let's not color it the way she wants it to be. She was one of the few congresswomen, and Congresswoman Clark is always out in the left, way far left, even though she has an $8 million trust account. She can no more relate to the average person than anybody can. She has the resources to live very well from her mother. So we should look at those things when we're saying it. I would suggest that Congresswoman Tron is a hypocrite at best. There's a dual standard in the system. And why isn't the system, applied equally and fairly to everybody involved? Those are the key questions. If it were Republican, the Boston Globe would be leading the charge, demanding their resignation. Why aren't they calling on Congresswoman Tron to resign? What has she accomplished? She ran. It appears, and I don't have evidence to that effect, that she violated the campaign laws. Should she only get a fine? I don't think so. I think she should be removed from office because she bought an election seat with illegal and tainted money. But evidently it's one standard for Republicans and a different standard for Democrats. Ms. Tron has not been forthcoming nor honest as to where the money came from. It's time to tell it like it is and get it out in the media. Going back to the Brockton-Manzer race for a few moments, I thought we'd talk about the change. We've seen major change with the death of Mayor Carpenter, and now we see that I see more signs for Councilor Sullivan, who's running for mayor, popping up all over the cities. I see Judge Lawton, retired juvenile judge, has entered the race, is also bringing more focus onto it. I caution the public, they should vote for the candidate. It is the most qualified to run the city.
Who is that?
And that is yet to be determined.
Okay.
But I mean, it would be Sullivan or Lawton. One of those two would be the most qualified to run the city because they had the experience. Mark was a state rep. He was also a juvenile judge for 25 years, and he ran the courthouse. He has some experience. Mr. Pereira, and who's also one of the front runners because of his nationality, Cape Verdean, I don't see what the qualifications are to run a major city. And City Councilor Davenport's 26 years of age has no qualifications to be mayor of the city of Brockton.
What is the date of the primary?
September 17th.
17.
So it is a hotly contested election. It's going to be who can rise from over all these people running. I think there are 10 of them running now for mayor, and it will determine the future of the city. So they've got to distinguish themselves somehow and get their names reintroduced.
Will it be a big turnout?
It will be a record turnout. There is a major backlash of white voters happening in the city right now. Mr. Davenport makes statements about sending money from city funds to Haiti.
Really?
Right. That is nothing that anybody would want. I don't want my tax dollars being sent to Haiti. I would rather get a reduction of my property taxes. I don't, and he made that statement he'd like to send money to Haiti. Well, that might be a worthwhile endeavor, but not for the taxpayers. Those things, so it is a hotly contested mayor's race. Every city council seat is contested. There are 18 people running for council at large, which will be narrowed to 8. So it should be good for the enterprise. It should be good for radio stations to start soliciting them, because they have to rise above the noise level to get their name known. This is a time for advertisers to get out there and hustle. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking. Those are some of the areas that I see as the major thing. There was a school committee race in Ward 3, a three-way race that should be hotly contested. Blessing Rogers is trying to run. She ran last time. Mark DiAugustino and Alan Green. Alan calls in quite a bit on the show. He's the vice chairman of the Republican City Committee. Mr. DiAugustino, the incumbent, is the former chairman of the City Committee. And so it's a two-way Republican fight, it looks like, which brings some excitement back to the Republican parties. There was a school committee fight in Ward 1. There was a city council fight in Ward 1. 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat. The incumbent, Timmy Cruz, is the Democrat. The 2 Republicans are Danny Lawton and Craig Pina. I would imagine the final will be Lawton versus Cruz. Mr. Pina's run and never sees the race through to the end, ever. He takes out papers, gets the signatures, and then withdraws. I have a feeling he'll do the same thing in the city council race. So it will be between Lawton and Cruz, which will be 2 Irish clans fighting it out for the hearts and souls of the voters of Ward 1. We are seeing demographic changes in the city. We are seeing an electorate that is highly engaged in this election cycle. Nationwide, the Mueller appeared on CNN and Fox before the hearings. Mueller did not appear to really understand what was in the report. He appeared to be distracted. He appeared like he didn't want to be there. He appeared like he really didn't know what had transpired with the investigation. I would think it was not a help to the Democrats. It didn't enhance the president's image, but it didn't help the Democrats towards impeachment. To impeach somebody, it's got to be crimes, supposedly, but the Democrats are writing a new standard. They should remember that once they go down this path, it will allow the Republicans to go down it when there's a Democratic president again. The same thing that they do to Trump will be done to whoever their nominee is. So we will see for the years to come the infighting. I don't think it's an issue, the impeachment, that is resonating with the American public. Most of the current polls show that we don't have support for impeachment with the public. There are 40 districts that could swap again. And it could be more. There could be more people elected to Congress than before on the fairness issue. Have the Democrats overplayed their hand? It's a key question. You might disagree with the president on issues, but does that rise to high crimes and misdemeanors? I don't think so. They tried to say he lies, they tried to say this or that, but there's a standard of proof. and they haven't been able to meet that standard. Adam Schiff should be retired from California. He is a partisan person who has no interest in the citizens of California, no interest in his constituents. He's more concerned with getting the president. Nader, the head of the Judiciary Committee, is an absolute embarrassment. He is as partisan as they come. What happened to the fairness issue? We talk about judiciary and committees being fair. There's no fairness on any of these committees anymore. You wonder if the judiciary is fair when the Supreme Court again overruled the Ninth Circuit. It is continuously overruled. Is the Ninth Circuit so partisan now that they're going to always rule against the president? They don't. They are playing politics with judicial decisions. The Supreme Court, on a 5-4 vote, allowed the funding to go forward for the wall. The president is allowed to take the money and to go forward with the funding. With that stated, it was a major setback for the Democrats. You can now see the changes are coming. The president could have another Supreme Court appointment. Some of the judges are very elderly. Judge Ginsburg, I think, is now 86 years old, and she's still sitting on the bench. If the president gets that appointment with the Republican majority in the Senate, they will choose another replacement. And that will add another seat. It would be a 6-3 vote then, and the conservatives would maintain their position on most of the issues coming before the court. This is Larry Novak, and I can be reached at 508-822-1106. Anybody that wants to discuss an issue of the day, give us a call. Getting back to Congresswoman Tron, we have a call coming in. Let's take it. And let's see if I don't have my thing.
Hello, Larry.
Hello, Alan Green.
How are you doing?
I'm good, and how are you?
I'm doing fine. That call you got today and the call I got at 11:26 last night, out of area, no name.
Why don't you explain to the voter Alan, they wouldn't know what you're talking about. Explain to them you received a call, you're running for school committee in Ward 3.
I'm running for school committee in Ward 3 in Brockton.
And you received a call.
I sent out invitations to a fundraiser. Now, somehow somebody got a hold of one and called up and complained about the punctuation, the grammar, yada, yada, yada. But I got also calls today that they liked my invitation. It was refreshing, not as usual political note.
Well, that's good.
One yes, one no.
Oh, that's good. So, I mean, you're getting a response. You're running for school committee in Ward 3 because you believe the schools are in decline. You believe that the students need a better future. You want to help them achieve that future. Am I correct?
That is correct.
And you're having a fundraiser. And where is your fundraiser being?
For the kids.
Where is your fundraiser being held?
At International House of Pancakes.
Yeah.
Wednesday, August 7th at 6 o'clock. $30 donation per person. From 6 o'clock till whenever anybody wants to stay.
Isn't it called a different name, not the International House of Pancakes?
IHOP. It's also called IHOP.
IHOP.
Yeah.
So people would know it by the IHOP name.
Some will, some don't.
Okay.
But it's in the invitation. both as International House of Pancakes and then in parentheses IHOP.
Now, where do they get in? How do they get in touch with you if they want to buy a ticket?
508 584 2258. They can buy a ticket at the door.
Or they can prepay a ticket ahead of time?
If they wish. It
Okay.
doesn't matter. I'll take cash. I'll take checks.
Well-
Yeah.
You're not able to take cash at $30.
Excuse me?
You cannot take cash.
Well,
You only can take a check,
okay, checks and no corporate checks.
and no corporate check. Anything over 25 has to be paid by check.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
You know more about this than I do.
all right. So you're running for school committee, and your event is August.
I thought you was on August 7th.
August 7th at the IHOP at the Westgate Mall in Brockton, and it starts at what time? 7?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. 6.
Because people have to eat supper.
Right. 6 o'clock, and you're serving dinner
I'm serving dinner from the menu.
from the menu. So people are able to order what they want off the menu.
That is correct.
And who else is on your committee? If they can't reach you,
His name is Lawrence Peter Novak.
yeah, who else can they reach?
They can reach you or me.
Okay, you don't have any other additional names on there?
No, because a lot of people are on vacation.
Okay,
Until a few days before the event.
okay. So you can be reached at 508-584-2258, Alan Green, running for Ward 3 School Committee seat in Brockton, to help the students achieve their full potential and help rise the test score results and bringing safety back to the schools.
The other two people are not veterans.
And Alan is a veteran. The
Petty officer.
right, and the other two people are, as we had announced earlier, there's a three-way race for this if all the people file their papers with the city clerk.
This is true.
Because Mr. DiAugustino had withdrawn from the race and re-entered the race.
Well, when he found out that I was running, he decided to go back in because he didn't like it when we took over the Brockton Republican City Committee and the Ward 1 and 3 committees, and we actually made something of it.
Well, I don't know what his rationale for re-entering the race is, but it would show that he lacks interest in the office, that he wasn't concerned, he wasn't going to run, and then he jumped in. Anybody that does that has a reluctancy to serve. They're not really interested in the post.
No, they were just interested because I said I was running.
And does his wife work for the school department?
I understand she works in the school department. I do not know if she's a teacher or not.
Which would be a conflict of interest if that's the case.
He couldn't vote on half the jobs.
He couldn't vote on any, he can't vote on the budget because it would affect her. I mean, so he would be prohibited under the ethics laws from voting, which is an interesting thing. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking. We're going to be we've just been speaking with Alan Green, candidate for Ward 3 School Committee, and we're going to be taking a short break. I urge the public, this is what's wrong with American politics. When she stole an election, she criticizes the president. She illegally financed it but calls for the impeachment of the president, but doesn't want to discuss the issue of how the campaign was financed. Shame on Lori Tron. She wasn't the front runner at the time. The additional money that came in illegally through her husband or business partners surely shows that anything goes in her pursuit of power. And that is not what democracy is supposed to be about. Where is the outcry that she stole an election? She spent money that was illegally obtained, if the allegations are true, that she shouldn't have. That propelled her to victory. But she has the nerve to come out and say the president committed wrongdoings and she's for impeachment. I have seen hypocrisy before, but nothing equals this woman's hypocrisy. It is really stunning when you think about it. And you look about it and you look at them. They thought having additional people run for office, that women were more honest, but that has not proven to be the case. So I would suggest that we look at all of these races very carefully and look at the character of the people running. They make wild statements. They go out and make statements that are not supported by facts, and they are funded by the liberal left. And where does all that funding come from? Where did the liberal left get the money? Are they getting it out of Russia? Are the liberals trying to hide something about where the source of the funding for their candidates is coming? I don't know. I watched a Fox News story the other night, and it is on Fox, so people think that's biased. But Fox, one of the leading former Clinton era Justice Department officials, predicted there will be major indictments on the Trump stuff coming out. That he thinks that you'll see a lot of people indicted by the Justice Department on the spying on the Trump campaign. And he thinks it will happen before the election. He thinks that they're moving with due haste, and that the prosecutor that has handled it has a federal grand jury already impaneled. And as we all know, you can indict anyone. Anybody can be indicted for anything today. We have so many laws on the books, they always can convict you of some wrongdoing. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking. I want to talk about the House of Representatives. I look at there are 40 swing districts right now, and those 40 are presently held by Democrats, but were carried by President Trump in the last election. What is interesting to see is, will the Democrats be able to continue to control the House of Representatives? Will they win? A few weeks ago, that wasn't in play. Now, leading experts think that the dynamics of those races are changing. They think that the Mueller performance before Congress really was an embarrassment to them. They have been on this crusade to get Trump, which is not supported by the American public. It is not supported by the majority of the public. Yes, you might disagree with the way he approaches things. Yes, but does it rise to high crimes and misdemeanors? Most experts say no. Would he be convicted in the United States Senate? Doubtful. Would they even take it up? It's like the Clinton case. Wasn't convicted in the Senate. Would beat impeachment, which would probably strengthen his hands. Nancy Pelosi is an astute politician. She realizes that the House would be in play if they tried to impeach the president. She's trying not to go down that road. because she doesn't want to lose her majority. If they lose the majority, or it becomes much closer, the House becomes harder to govern. It becomes more divided. Those are the issues that are really in the forefront of this investigation. Nadler, and who's a congressman from New York in a very safe Democratic district, is not in the mainstream of political discourse in America. He has a personal agenda, a witch hunt, to get somebody. He is going to do everything in his power to accomplish that. There you have the Congressman Adam Schiff from California, who has made wild statements that were never supported by any evidence. He should not be reelected. It's time for Nadler and Schiff to retire. They've been there too long. They are becoming, along with 4 radical socialist Democrats, the face of the Democratic Party. You don't see the presidential candidates generating the publicity that they've generated. You don't see the presidential candidates really getting the exposure that they'll need to compete against President Trump. They are not even being quoted on these developments. It's Schiff, Nadler, and Pelosi, and 4 socialist Democrats. When I grew up, a socialist was considered a weirdo. You didn't want to be a socialist. You didn't want the government to pay for everything. You wanted your own money to live on. You had self-pride and self-achievement. Today, those things are lacking. They want the government to do everything for them. They want the government to, get them housing. They want the government to feed them. They want the government to also pay all their bills. Well, you know what? That's not how life works. If it was, it would be a great life. Nobody would work, and there'd be nothing done. There'd be no purpose. When you lack purpose, you lack the well-being. So therefore, the radical left proposals are not helpful in the long run. They don't go after the big banks where they charge these exorbitant overdraft fees. They let that go because the big banks finance their campaigns. So, you don't hear Congressman Clark talk about that. You don't hear Congresswoman Tran talk about that. You don't hear the delegations talk about that from Massachusetts because they give them money. Money fuels the political machine to get them elected. You hear very little criticism of any major business group by the Democrats because they're getting, campaign contributions. And the goose that lays the golden egg, you don't want to destroy her, so you don't open your mouth. But the wrongs of society do not change, and they haven't changed. Does anybody think that streets are better paved after 50 years of Democratic rule? That there are no potholes? That the state is better run after 50 years of control of the legislature by the Democrats? Do you know that the books have never been examined in the legislature by the outside auditor? We don't even know how the money is spent by the legislature on their accounts. We never will. The Democrats have buried that, so there is no audit conducted by the Auditor General. Shame, shame. But of course, they'll never bring that up. They'll never discuss that issue. They'll say, oh, no. They'll whitewash these issues because they know that they can get away with it. They know they can push the envelope to the nth degree with no accountability. When you look at it, there's one standard for the masses and a different standard for the ruling elite. And that is unfair, unconstitutional, and wrong. There is a bias in the Justice Department, and that bias has really come out in the last couple of years. Those people should that were running the Justice Department and those intelligence agencies should be indicted if they launched an investigation with no merit on somebody that was running for the President of the United States. Where is the outcry of the mainstream media? You don't hear it. Where is the outcry of the New York Times? You don't hear it. Where is the outcry of the Washington Post? There is dead silence. California, that is in really tough financial shape with their radical politics, and it is a declining area where people are moving out, not moving in. They can't afford the taxes or the housing costs. Why doesn't the mainstream media talk about it? You know, the mainstream media pushed radical ideas in Detroit, and now look at Detroit. A beautiful city at one stage on decline. Urban decay everywhere. Crime at an all-time high. What do they talk about? They don't mention Detroit. They don't mention that the population's gone from 2 million down to 700,000. They don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about the abandoned housing stock everywhere and the people walked away from the houses and never paid. They just moved out, left them, and left the banks stuck with the notes. They don't want to talk about that. Because you know why? They promoted these radical socialist programs. They have destroyed the mainstream of America. They have destroyed our value system. Now they attack the churches because the church stands in their way of achieving what they see as ideal lifestyles. They do not want any group that opposes them to remain standing. It is an alarming change that's happening in America. It's time for the public to stand up. It's time for the public to get wind of what is going on. It's time to tell it like it is. You know, you look at people, they don't want to be opposed running for public office. There was one set of rules. One senator had 2 OUIs. If that had been a Republican, he would have been expelled from the state Senate. But due to the fact that he was a Democrat, it was immediately swept under the rug. One set of rules for the Democrats and a different set of rules for the Republicans. Where is the fairness in the system? Massachusetts is changing. It is becoming a heavily unenrolled state that has no allegiance down the road to either political party. The state, I think, has now hit, Joey, am I correct, 55%? Unenrolled?
Around that number, yes.
So, I mean, it tells you that the political parties are becoming less and less relevant. And it tells you that they do not enjoy the discourse that's happening at the State House. You know, they have left the common sense values of getting the streets paved, balancing a budget, paying off the debt and obligations that are owed by the citizens of to the citizens of the Commonwealth. You know, the cost of living in Massachusetts is extremely high. You have, let's go through the tax bills. You have a real estate tax. You have personal income tax. You have a sales tax. You have an excise tax. You have water and sewer bills now. You know, our tax burden is extremely high. And the governor is proposing more taxes to fund additional expansion of the MBTA. Well, the MBTA hasn't run right for 50 years, and it's still not running right. But the unions are too powerful to take on. No governor or no member of the General Court will stand up to them. Why? Because of political donations. The campaign laws are written to protect incumbents. There should be an overhaul of the law, It should be no reporting requirement. Reporting requirement, yes, but it should be unlimited contributions to make up so somebody would have a chance against an incumbent. The likelihood that an individual can raise that type of money is not great. So, I mean, those changes wouldn't be really that sweeping. The Democratic Party is the party of liberal money now and socialism. Will the money continue to follow? Will the unions continue to support this socialistic trend of the Democratic Party? These are the questions that are being asked. When you there's something going on, at least in the city of Brockton, there's a record amount of candidates running. And that would signal that the public is dissatisfied with the status quo. They're dissatisfied with the streets not being clean. They're dissatisfied with the trash not being picked up. They're dissatisfied with all the bills that they pay, and they're questioning what they're getting out of it. You have three, I would think, two leading candidates for mayor, Mark Roden and Sullivan. I thought before it would be Carpenter and Jimmy Pereira. Carpenter out has changed the dynamics. The interesting thing is the Lawton family still well known in Brockton, and can they produce a vote? Can they get old people to vote for him? Can they get new people involved with this political campaign? Key question. Time will tell. Or will Sullivan simply walk into the mayor's chair? I think Sullivan now is the leading contender for mayor. He has more life experience and is better educated than the other candidates. Those are key questions. I would think that life experience, the life story of somebody, will have a major impact on that election. I do not think because you're from one ethnic group or another, that alone will get you the nomination. It's going to be an interesting time. The city is at a crossroads. The city has an image problem and has for 20 years. Former Mayor Wainwright used to say that when you took all this federal money, there were strings attached when Mayor Crosby, a former mayor, both now deceased, ran against them. Mayor Wainwright was a predictor of the future. He was absolutely right on what he said. It would change the social fiber of the city. It has. Change is good. But the values and the groups that held the city together are no longer relevant in today's society in the city of Brockton. There's a rising crime rate, which is down maybe a little this year, but it still makes the 100th most dangerous cities in America, dropping test scores in the schools. From a school department that was second to none in the country is now second to the bottom. What a rapid decline. To see the city of champions on its knees, seeing a failed policies of the leadership of the left, and they don't give up. They keep coming and coming. You see Elizabeth Warren. None of her policies will ever be adopted in the United States Senate. She couldn't get a piece of legislation through if her life depended on it. If she's president, and if there's a Republican Senate, she won't be able to get it through either. They will sit on anything she wants. If there's a Republican House, they will do to Elizabeth Warren what the Democrats did to Trump. Investigations, investigations, investigations. How did Elizabeth Warren make her money? Was she actually worth $400,000 a year to teach one course at the college? Why would anybody donate money to Harvard College when they paid Elizabeth Warren $400,000 for one course? My God, that's an incredible amount. She was making over $10,000 an hour. Is anybody worth that kind of money? Well, you know, they don't talk about it. They don't bring it up because she's part of the liberal elite that rule Massachusetts. Shocking and alarming. There should be the same standard should apply to all. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking, and we can be reached at 508-822-1106. We're going to be going to the year in review, and I'll be back after that.
On this date, in 1909, Orville Wright tests the first U.S. Army airplane, flying for an hour and 12 minutes.
Is that the only thing that happened on this date?
I'm sure there's others. That's the one that I wanted to really highlight, though,
Oh.
today.
And isn't this, today is, we were in the end of World War II almost. I think it ended,
We're on the sun.
September?
no, September,
September.
So August 15th is VJ Day.
August 15th.
Okay, September 2nd, they signed on the USS Missouri.
Japan.
Okay, and May 3rd was VE Day.
So Hitler committed suicide in April of
April 30th.
April 30th, 1945.
Yeah.
I actually watched a movie the other night on Netflix about a woman that was the mistress to Goebbels and how her life was ruined by it. How she was charged with treason in Czechoslovakia because she went out with Goebbels.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a very interesting movie, and it highlighted that the involvement in politics can lead to bad things.
Yeah, you got that right.
I mean, not good things. But, you know, and they investigate you when you don't agree with them. They launch investigations to attempt to destroy your reputation because you don't agree with them. Not a good chain of events for people, but change comes very difficult. It's very difficult. Just remember, when I was growing up, you went to jail if you smoked marijuana. Today it's legalized in Massachusetts. You know, so for years they prosecuted people, and now they no longer do that. It's legal. So the rules of society, laws, and that's all law is, it's a rule of society, constantly changes. Before you could be paid from illegal sources of funds, lawyers could. Now they can't be. So people don't get full legal representation of their choice. The government picks up the tab. When will it ever end? We are now having one of the largest deficits in the history of America. Who's going to ever pay these bills off? Eventually they're going to max out the credit card and nobody's going to be there to pay them off. I will be long gone and from this planet, and hopefully next generation will be stuck living a worse lifestyle because this generation ran up all these credit card bills and that they have to be paid off. Believe me, the financial institutions never take a hit on anything. They'll get paid. Their notes will be paid to the government will end up paying them in the end. So taxation will go up in the future, and it will probably be very tough taxation. Britain had a 90% tax rate at the close of World War II. So you only get 10% of your income went to you, 90% went to the government. God save us. Next week, we'll have a candidate who's supposed to be running for mayor of Brockton. She's a first-time candidate. We'll be airing the show out of Middleborough next week. It is Happy Days in Middleborough next week.
Crazy days.
Crazy days.
Not
Crazy.
They are happy, but they're crazy too.
Yes, Crazy Days in Middleborough. So we look forward to seeing you next week, and we'll be in the wonderful town of Middleborough. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking.